Welcome to SportsBeat KC, the Kansas City Star's daily sports podcast. It's Friday, November 5th. I'm Blair Kirchhoff. We have approached the intersection of college football and college hoops, and today we'll talk both with beat writers Kellis Robinett, Jesse Newell, and Lila Bromberg. But mostly, we're going to talk football. It's Sunflower Showdown week for K-State and KU. The games in Lawrence this season, and Kellis and Jesse break it down. The Wildcats are 24-point favorites, and they're looking to run their winning streak to 3. By the way, the previous 2 Kansas State victories resulted in coaches losing their jobs. Matt Wells at Texas Tech and Gary Patterson at TCU. KU looks to have a similar effort to the one against Oklahoma a few weeks ago when they took the Sooners to deep in the fourth quarter before falling. Missouri's coming off its first SEC victory of the season at Vanderbilt, and it could not be facing a more difficult opponent this week. The Tigers travel to top-ranked Georgia. Missouri's a 38-point underdog, and part of that is the uncertainty at quarterback. Connor Bazelak didn't finish last week's game, and he's listed as questionable for Saturday. Lila breaks it down for us. Okay, let's get started talking college sports. Kellis Robinett and Jesse Newell are here. We are talking the biggest college football game of the season, well, at least in Kansas. Well, at least for a small segment of the population. Anyway, it's the...
Just stop there, Blair. Just stop there.
It was a nice attempt.
Yeah, I couldn't come up with anything. But look, it's Kansas State at Kansas on Saturday. And I suppose this one is going to go the way they've all gone for the last, 200 or 300 years. But there is at least one of the themes in this game is coaching security. We think both coaches are going to be at their schools for a while, and I'm not sure I felt that way about, at least on the Kansas side of things, for a little bit. So the game's got that going for it. I don't know if that'll sell any tickets, but you could at least say that, Chris Kleiman and Lance Leipold are, 2 guys that you expect to be around these programs for a while. And because of that, maybe there's an expectation of the programs, at least on the Kansas side, improving. And am I semi right about this, Jesse?
Yeah, I think so. The intrigue with this one, obviously, whatever case, it's a 24-point favorite in this one. You mentioned KU has lost every game in this one going back to 2000. What is it, Kellis? 8 or 2009? One of those 2 years. 2009. I asked Devin Neal about it this week. It kind of just popped in my head. The KU star running back. I said, "Do you remember a KU football win over K-State?" And he goes, "I'm sure my parents were hyped, but I don't," because he would have been 5 or 6 years old. And so that kind of speaks to the age of us mostly, because I do remember KU beating K-State at some point in time. That was part of, when I was covering sports and things like that. But I think, it is hard for people like us to kind of realize that there's like a generation now that hasn't seen this, hasn't realized this. But you're right. This is going to end the K-State Grim Reaper watch of every school that loses to K-State fires its coach. I feel very confident saying that 100% Lance Leipold will be the coach of Kansas no matter what happens on Saturday. But for Kansas, it's all about psyche. 2 weeks ago at home against Oklahoma, they had some good things go for them early. They gained confidence. They played with physicality, and they almost, shocked the entire nation when they had an upset bid chance against Oklahoma. The next week they go to Oklahoma State. A couple of things go bad for them. The here we go agains pop up, and they were completely uncompetitive, get blown out of the water. So I'll be watching the first 2 drives. I think that will tell us a lot about this game. If KU has that game at 0-0 or has a lead after 2 drives, all of a sudden gets a little bit of confidence, has some of the home fans in there going for them, then maybe this thing can be a little bit closer than people think. But this also has blowout possibility because, like I said, KU, if things do not go right early, then things go very bad late. And that's going to be something they try to build up in the program. But right now, they're not past that. So for them to have a competitive game, I think they got to get off to a good start.
I can remember a Glenn Mason team beating a Bill Snyder team. That's how far back I go with this series. That's been a long, long time. The The blowout possibility is certainly there for Kansas State. They've played so well, actually, the last couple of weeks. Well, let's just say the last game and then the last 6 quarters would be maybe more accurate the way K-State has played. They kind of have found their stride, haven't they, Kellis?
They have, and people in Manhattan have mostly forgotten about that pesky 3-game losing streak they had at the start of Big 12 play. Everything's well right now. They've gotten back-to-back coaches fired.
That's amazing.
I don't know what it would take to make it 150-point win. Would that do it? Still probably not. But yeah, no, they're playing at a high level. Skylar Thompson is back under center and throwing it really well. The defense has really been the turning point, though. In those last 6 quarters, they've allowed a total of 12 points, and the only touchdown they gave up was kind of in garbage time.
Yeah, against TCU.
I don't know if we'll know that for sure until we get past this game and Kansas State finishes with West Virginia, Baylor, and Texas. I think those 3 games will define the season more than this one will. But it will be interesting. I mean, people here still sure care about it. What always interests me about this rivalry is that whenever Kansas State players come out and talk about Kansas leading into this game, given all the history involved that they've won 12 straight, KU's running back can't remember a time where they've won the game. You'd think maybe K-State players would overlook this thing eventually, but, they're just bitter and really want to win this game. And I think that goes back to Bill Snyder. He valued this rivalry over everything else. The only trophy he really ever displayed prominently in Kansas State's facility was the Governor's Cup, the Governor's Trophy. And, not a lot of people would think that beating Kansas hasn't been that big of a deal, but it still is for people here. And that's what makes me think Kansas State probably covers. But 24 on the road is a lot of points, so that'll be interesting.
Yeah, but there will be as many K-State fans there, won't there, as KU fans? Maybe that's a little bit of an exaggeration, but typically this is a game that Kansas State fans show up to in droves.
They do. Kansas State only had 44,000 at their last home game, though. So both teams have kind of struggled a little bit in attendance. But you're right. That's one reason somebody asked me is Kansas going to open up this thing at halftime for fans to come on in? And I said no, because they don't want a bunch of purple people coming in. That wasn't a problem with Oklahoma.
I do think it's fascinating, Kellis, and I think this makes sense, honestly, on both sides of this, why it is the way it is, because you're right. I think K-State has to battle overlooking Kansas. And so there's kind of this pump-up factor that they do, that they bring up this vitriol and, hey, this is the Sunflower Showdown. Hey, you got to do this for the fan base. And, we saw the Cooper Beebe stuff, which a quick side note on that. For a while, I kind of thought maybe he's exaggerating. Maybe the story's not out there. I kind of checked in with a few people, and I'm actually more convinced now that the story's true than I was before. So I think there probably is, from what I could gather, some truth to what he said. And then that's not what I would have expected, reaching out to the people that I did. But, for Kansas, it's been the exact opposite. And some of this makes sense with Lance Leipold because he has been such a process-oriented guy. He's been a guy, after they lost at Iowa State, got blown out, and they were having their bye week, and we were asking him, hey, what are you going to do? And he just said, stay the course, do the same thing they were going to do. And he's really into day-by-day progress, day-by-day success. So you have not heard Kansas say much on their end here. You have not heard them chatter or any of the Les Miles, who is K-State, viral ESPN Plus videos, nothing like that from KU's side. Like I said, Devin Neal talked a little bit about, just being a Kansas kid, a Lawrence kid, and knowing some kids on the K-State team, 3 of them, I think, from Lawrence, and how much it would mean if Kansas got that. But I can see why, if you're Kansas, why you would not be cocky here. I mean, you haven't won in more than a decade. So I think Kansas is just sort of bunkering down and saying, hey, not much to say here. You treat it like any other game. And KU does need to make progress in its program before it goes out and chirps about anything. But I can understand why K-State also would be on the other end and say, let's chat a little bit. Let's talk this thing up. Let's make this important because, as you said, Kellis, there are going to be more important games on their schedule coming up that are more competitive, more than likely. So that they sort of have to make this thing generate some energy and make this thing a big deal to focus in on it and make sure it's a big game.
Bowl eligibility is here for K-State, right? If they win this, they get 6.
That is correct.
Yeah. So, look, there was never a doubt, but there was a time after that, during that at the end of that 3-game losing streak, when people were kind of wondering a little bit about where this season was going to go, the direction of the season. But the wins over Tech and TCU have changed that that idea. And Kellis, we've got to mention, as we did last week, when we were having trouble, well, at least I was, you weren't, having trouble with the pronunciation of Felix's name. That's going to need to become something of a household name, the way this guy is playing.
Yeah, and it still boggles my mind that Felix Anudike-Uzomah was basically a free agent. Okay, you could have had him. Missouri could have had him. Anybody could have had him if they'd have just come in before December 17th of 2019 and offered him a scholarship. He told me KU actually did recruit him a little bit, but they told him he was too undersized to play defensive end. They wanted him to move to linebacker. Never offered him a scholarship. I don't know if they would have gotten to that point, even if he'd have said, yeah, I'll take a look at outside linebacker. But he said, no, thanks. I don't want to try that. But that's another interesting wrinkle here. What would have happened if they were the school that offered this guy instead and they had the Big 12 sack leader. But everybody's saying that right now. Kansas State almost didn't even offer him. But that last game was something else. I've never heard a defender's name just announced over and over and over in a game like that.
Yeah, well, we got Gary Patterson fired, and he helped get Matt Wells fired as well. So he's fantastic. He's quick as a cat, quick as Felix the cat, and just all around plays the position so well. Poised to have a big game this week against the Jayhawks. So, Kellis, what kind of bowl game are we looking at for K-State? What's sort of the range of the potential here for the Wildcats going down the stretch?
Well, it depends how they close. If they win out and get to 9 wins, 9-3, then you're looking at maybe the bowl in Florida that used to be the Camping World Bowl, used to be a million different names. Right now, it's called the Cheez-It Bowl. I think that's probably a little too wishful thinking for them. My best case is I could see them getting to the Texas Bowl if they could win maybe 3 more. But if that doesn't happen, I think you're probably looking at maybe the Liberty Bowl, where they've been twice previously. So I don't think they're going to want them. And most realistically right now, I'm thinking, I believe it's called the Guaranteed Rate Bowl, which is a fan favorite for Kansas State, because that used to be the Copper Bowl. That used to be the Buffalo Wild Wings Bowl. That used to be the Insight.com Bowl. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if that's for them.
Well, the important thing is, where do you want to go, Kellis? That's really all that matters.
It's colder. It's getting colder outside right now. Phoenix sounds great. I would go there.
Sounds good. As promised, let's talk a little hoops as well. Kansas got its season off last night with a exhibition game on Wednesday night against Emporia State. And Jesse, I was a little bit surprised by who wasn't starting last night. Who did not make the start. The Big 12 preseason player of the year came off the bench in the opener. But there's always a method to Bill Self's madness, isn't there?
I love this. This is great. I mean, you already know the season storyline before the season's even started. And, Bill Self has, again, I want to use the right terminology here, because painting himself in a corner is a bad way to talk about adding a player who's averaged 19 points per game the last 2 years. There's worse problems out there, I'm sure, in the college basketball world. I'm sure coaches at Kansas State or Missouri, would love to welcome that challenge. Like, oh no, I have to figure out what to do with this all Pac-12 player that I added to my roster. But yeah, it's the Remy Martin experience, as I wrote. It's fascinating because he comes in from Arizona State. He kind of was allowed to do what he wanted there. The offense was more free. We talked to him at KU Media Days, and I've never heard this answer before. It was just so fascinating to me. Somebody asked him what the biggest adjustment was to playing at Kansas, and he said, I have to get used to not going back to the basketball, which is what he did at Arizona State. If the first part of the play didn't work, he just ran back, got the basketball, and went and shot it. So that's not how Kansas plays, and that's not how Bill Self wants Kansas to play. And before the exhibition game, KU had a 6:30 a.m. workout and then a 2 p.m. workout, and then played the basketball game at 7 p.m. So maybe guys were a little bit tired, but he's trying like heck to get Remy to buy into what he believes. And, there's give and take here. I've seen arguments all across the spectrum from this, what Bill Self should do with Remy, what Remy should do, all those sorts of things. And some people saying, look, you knew what you got in Remy. He's a freestyling player. You got what you paid for, basically. In that sense of the term. But I think Bill Self has reason to fight back here because he has loyalty to those 4 starters that are returning. He has loyalty to the roster that he already put together. He has loyalty to a system and a program that has been built over time on team chemistry and guys that work hard to play for each other. So if a hot shot walks in and just takes in whatever shot he wants, whether it's good or bad or within the flow of the offense or efficient or not efficient, maybe the boat starts to get overturned. You know what I mean? So I understand what Bill Self's doing here. I think it's something that a lot of coaches probably wouldn't do in this day and age because you want to make your stars happy. You want to recruit well in the future. But I think what he sees is if he lets Remy be Remy, KU's ceiling is pretty good, but not amazing. If he has Remy and gets through to Remy and has him buy into the team concept and has Remy get open shots for guys like Ochai Agbaji and Christian Brown when they all start playing together, then that ceiling could be Final Four. That ceiling could be national championship. So he's doing what coaches do, which is try and get more out of his players. Yet at some point, he is going to have to let the reins go a little bit on Remy and let him be himself. And so that's kind of the battle right now. It's going to be a battle throughout the whole season. And buckle up. I'm ready for it. Let's follow this whole thing and see where it goes.
I did love that pass he made. It was Remy, wasn't it? Like the cross-court pass that he made to the corner for the Agbaji 3. I thought not many guys make that pass or can make that pass as accurately as I saw Remy do.
Yeah, I wrote that in the story. It's amazing. Like, that's the play. If he makes that play for Kansas, I mean, they're a top 5 off. I mean, he reads the ball screen. He sees the backside defender. He sees that he's committed, and he takes one hand and tosses it across court. Perfect pass to Ochai Agbaji for a corner 3, which is as good of a shot as you're going to get in the possession. Funny enough, the very next possession I wrote about this, KU's offense didn't work in the first 10 seconds. Remy circled back and got the basketball, took on 2 defenders, shot an 18-foot off-balance fadeaway and brick. So you got the full Remy experience in those 2 possessions, but I think that's exactly what Bill Self sees, which is like, if you can take door number 1 Remy and package that up 80 to 90% of the time, and then take door number 2 Remy and keep that for 10 to 20% to let him be himself, then you're gonna have a really good basketball team. But if that's closer to 50-50, if that's closer to 20-80, then yeah, you kind of risk losing control of what you've built up over time. So it's going to be fascinating. That's 2 very big, strong personalities going against each other. And I think that's going to be something to follow all year.
We'll link to that story in the show notes. Kellis, does Bruce Weber have a handle on his starting 5 yet?
Well, we're recording this before they play their exhibition game against Pittsburgh State. So we'll see what he goes with. I asked him earlier this week, and he was like, "Are you kidding me? No, I don't know." Which you wouldn't expect to hear from a coach this late in the game. But I think it's interesting. He seems to, not want to be married to any one starting line this season. And I think that reason is twofold. One, they've got more capable players this year. Last year, they only really had, 5-6 guys they even trusted to play at any given time. So those were going to be the starters. This year, they've got, especially in the backcourt, some options. They could go big, they could go small. And depending on who's, playing best at the time, what matchups are going against, they can choose to use any, one of about 6 guards in the starting lineup. And that's something that we haven't seen a bunch of them in the past. So maybe it's kind of him being a little kid on Christmas Day, playing with his new toys, doesn't want to get locked into one new thing at this point. So I do think it'll be interesting. I mean, my guess is when everybody's healthy, we'll see a starting lineup that looks like Nigel Pack, Mike McGurl, Mark Smith, Ishmael Massoud, and Davion Bradford. But I say that because that gives them the most experience and, gives them a nice mixture of height and everything that you'd want. But at the same time, everybody says that Marquise Nowell and Selt Miguel have been playing really good in practice. So, do you deny them every game? I don't know. Maybe if they're playing hot, you move them in, move somebody else out. I guess we'll get a better look here in these first couple games. But it's definitely one of those things where this season you might have to, look up at the scoreboard 5 minutes before every game tonight is going to start.
This is an exhibition, right? This isn't. They're not going to get 4 hazed tonight, right?
It is an exhibition. I mean, they might get 4 hazed. I don't know,
but it won't. At least it won't count.
But it won't go down in the record books as a loss for us. That's the good thing.
Right. All right. Well, we'll talk again soon, you guys. I appreciate you hanging out with me today. Hey, it's Blair. We have a special subscription offer for SportsBeat KC listeners, unlimited digital access to the Kansas City Stars award-winning sports coverage. Sign up now for 1 year of Sports Pass for access to all the sports news, features, and columns presented on the kansascity.com site, and it's only $30. That's a 40% savings off our regular rate. Your subscription will automatically renew after the initial term at $50 unless you tell us to cancel. Your subscription helps support the sports coverage of kansascity.com and the Kansas City Star, and that support has never been more important. Please visit kansascity.com/SportsBeatKC offer to get this special offer. And as always, thanks for listening. We're joined by Lila Bromberg, who covers the Missouri Tigers. And Lila, we don't get many chances to talk about an SEC victory, so I think we should do that for a while. Tigers went to Nashville and beat Vanderbilt 37-28, I think the score was, or 38-27, something like that. It was close most of the way. It looked like there were times when the Tigers were, had a chance to put the game away, and then something would happen and Vanderbilt would get right back in it. And finally, in the end, big run by Tyler Beatty and set up the touchdown that gave him the 2-score lead. Missouri, listen, we spent a lot of time talking about what Missouri doesn't do well. They did some things well in this game, didn't they?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Tyler Beatty, and he really had an incredible performance, had a 73-yard run in the fourth quarter that led to the game-winning touchdown after Connor Bazelak had gone out with injuries, finished with over 250 rushing yards, and, had around like 40 receiving yards on top of that as well, and 2 touchdowns. He really was incredible in this game and has just been so stable for Mizzou all season.
Yeah, and he got an honor, right? SEC?
SEC Offensive Player of the Week, yeah.
Yeah, finished with 254 yards rushing. What did Eli Drinkwitz had an interesting comment about him after the game, called him what the player nobody in the country is talking about, something like that.
Yeah, and he said this after previous games too. He said he's, the kind of best player that no one's talking about. And I mean, I think that's true to a certain extent. He's hasn't been getting a lot of national attention. A lot of it has, come with how bad Mizzou has been at times this season, and just the struggles the team has had. But yeah, I mean, Tyler Beatty really has had an incredible season so far. He's top 5 in most categories when you look at the FBS, and really has been doing everything for this Mizzou offense, both catching the ball, running the ball, and he's definitely a guy that you can see is going to make an impact at the next level just because of his ability to be a threat in both the running and passing game.
He had a run in that game where he just totally bounced off a defender, right? Mm-hmm. Defender had an open field tackle opportunity, and Beatty just bounced off of him and turned it into another long gain. It was a great game by Tyler Beatty. He's going to end up with a lot of great stats this year. I hope he gets the postseason accolades that he's going to deserve. He certainly will get an opportunity to showcase his talent on Saturday, and we'll get to that the Georgia game and the Georgia defense here in a minute. But before we wrap up Vanderbilt, Beatty wasn't the only Missouri player to win an SEC award from the conference in that game. Tell us about Harrison Mevis.
Yeah, Harrison Mevis was named a Special Teams Player of the Week. Honestly, it's a little surprising he hasn't been at any point earlier this season, but I would assume it's just because it's been games where Missouri has lost games. But he has really been incredible all season and has now made 19 consecutive field goals dating back to last season. He had another field goal of over 50 yards in the game and had 3 of them, 3 field goals in the game, one of over 50 yards, and just has been so, consistent. You don't really know what you're getting when you put a college kicker out there to, kick a 50-yarder. But with him, it's going right through the middle of the uprights. And that's really been huge for Mizzou this season. I mean, I think I said it to someone after the game that if they haven't had him this season, you could even have some of these games, be worse than they have been. I don't know how many wins they would be at. He's really just been so crucial for them this season to know that as soon as you pretty much cross midfield, kicking a field goal is an option.
Yeah, the thicker kicker. I love the nickname.
Yeah.
and I think his best moment came in a loss, the Boston College game, where he had I think it was 56 yards.
56 yards. I mean, when have you ever heard of a college kicker hitting a 56-yard? I mean, it just doesn't really happen that much, you know?
No, it doesn't. Absolutely doesn't. And under intense pressure, last snap of regulation to send it to overtime. And of course, the Tigers lost it in overtime. But heck, he might have been National Special Teams Player of the Week. Mm-hmm. Missouri had gone on to find a way to win that game.
Yeah, I think a lot of NFL teams would honestly want his talents right now. I mean, he looks better than a lot of the kickers in the NFL right now, to be honest.
Hey, for sure. I think he's got a chance to play on Sundays. That is for sure. Okay, you mentioned this earlier, Lila, that Connor Bazelak did not finish the game. Tyler Macon finished at quarterback. Actually, had a rushing touchdown there. The first play after Beatty's 73-yard run. What is the latest on Missouri's quarterback situation heading into Georgia?
Yeah, so Connor Bazelak went out with around 6 minutes left. He was kind of holding his hip and then kind of stumbling. And then just, the next thing we knew, he was on the ground being tended to by trainers. We have been told it's a soft tissue injury. And Drinkwitz wouldn't elaborate on it anymore, referring to the injury report that was going to be released today. And he's listed as questionable, which I think we all kind of expected of, he was going to be listed as questionable, even if they already know he's going to be out or doubtful. I would not expect him to play at all. I think, just the comments we got from some wide receivers when we talked to them this week, both kind of when we asked them about the backup quarterback, said something about them playing on Saturday or like being excited to see what they can do on Saturday. And just, if you have a quarterback that isn't close to 100%, playing him against this Georgia defense is not the best idea long-term for your season.
No, it is not. So you had a good story breaking down both Tyler Macon and Brady Cook. What do each of them offer? Is there anything a little different that each of them bring to an appearance?
Yeah, I mean, the thing with both of them is they're both young. I was very impressed to see Tyler Macon, even though, Beatty kind of set up that score against Vanderbilt, but to do that as a true freshman. So, he's still learning the playbook. He's still adjusting to everything, which is something they keep in mind. And Brady Cook is just a redshirt freshman as well. So, both of these are young guys. Tyler Macon has been described as a bit more of a mobile quarterback, but he had a really impressive throw against SEMO early in the year that was just, perfectly placed and ended up, being a touchdown. And Brady Cook has a great arm as well. So, I mean, we haven't seen a lot, but based on their high school careers, Tyler Macon had a very impressive high school career, set a lot of Illinois State records. He was named to the Elite 11, which is basically a quarterback camp for the best quarterbacks in the country that has produced a ton of NFL and college level quarterbacks that have gone on to do great things. And he impressed the coaches there, which I think was the thing that stood out to me the most when I was doing research on these guys. I also wouldn't be surprised to see them both play and get some opportunities just because we haven't seen that much of either of them. And it's such a dominant defense. I wouldn't be surprised if, Drinkwitz were to give them both opportunities on Saturday.
Well, no matter who is playing quarterback against Georgia, it is going to be the most difficult task. It's the most difficult task in college football, playing the top-ranked team at their stadium. And Georgia is the top-ranked team because of their defense. It's really been incredible all year. The defense has scored 3 touchdowns and has allowed 5 touchdowns this year. It's amazing what Georgia's been able to do. The Tigers are, I think the latest I saw was a 38-point underdog in this game. What's best case scenario for the Tigers going to Athens this weekend?
I don't see any way that they win this game, especially with Connor Bazelak probably not playing, and also just that a lot of Georgia's offense relies on the run game, which Mizzou still cannot defend in any way whatsoever. I mean, if Tyler Beatty is somehow able to get it going against this defense, maybe this isn't a complete blowout, but to be honest, like I see this being a complete blowout.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think the Missouri's best chance is to shorten the game and rely on Tyler Beatty and the offensive line to pick up first downs, move the chain, keep Georgia's offense off the field against the Missouri rushing defense, and hopefully just keep the game as low scoring as possible. It's going to be a difficult chore. There's no doubt about it. Maybe they catch Georgia coming off the emotional win over Florida last week.
I don't know. I think we're going to end up with something like 56-3, 56-6, something like that. Like, I don't think there's any way that Missouri's even within, 20 points in this game.
It'd be tough. It's going to be tough. But we'll see. Look, we'll be tuning in. You'll be there. So.
If you get a backup quarterback and something crazy could happen. You never know.
Right. Hey, I don't think we'll talk again before Missouri tips off its basketball season, which is next Tuesday. Is it Tuesday?
Next Tuesday.
So when we talk next week, we'll have a little more basketball talk. But I wanted to wind this down, talking a little bit about Warren Powers, the former Missouri football coach who passed away this week. He and his wife, Linda, she also died earlier this year. Listen, I know you didn't know Warren Powers. I'd never met Warren Powers, but I know a little bit about Missouri's football history. And look, I know that he had a winning record and his career got off to a great start at Mizzou. He was well thought of. And I just want to know what you learned in researching stories about Warren Powers.
He really came in and was able to do things right away that not a lot of people thought he could. The first game of the season, knocking off Notre Dame on the road. They beat Nebraska that season on the road as well, and finished that first year 8-4 to get to a bowl game for the first time in a long time. And talked to some former players this week, and they talked to me about just kind of him coming in and really setting a standard of working hard, and kind of really was a motivator and guy that could instill belief in players. Came in and started a weight program and petitioned. I was just reading some articles actually from the Kansas City Star, when he first took a job, months after a job, about him petitioning for them to have a weight room and weight facilities and to make that training a part of their football program, because at the time that wasn't a standard thing. Really just was able to, he led them to 5 bowl games, 4 straight at one point, and really kind of brought the program into being competitive in the Big 8 when it hadn't been for a bit. And as you mentioned, kind of was unfairly fired after one losing season. And then Mizzou wasn't able to have success again until to even have a winning season again until the late 90s.
Right. Woody Woodenhofer took over, and then Bob Stull, and then finally Larry Smith with Corby Jones at quarterback. Finally got him back to a bowl game, but it took a while, more than a decade of non-bowl season football. I exchanged texts with Joe Castiglione, who is the athletic director at Oklahoma, who was a Missouri administrator, started his career there in 1981, came from Maryland, but started his career at Mizzou in 1981. And one of his first jobs was to kind of beef up the publicity for Missouri athletic communications. And he went to Warren Powers and had a discussion with him. And Warren said, "Look, what do you want me to do? I'll do anything to help, get the word out about Missouri football." So Joe Castiglione really thought highly of Warren Powers, and everything I've heard, just a terrific guy, and proud Missouri guy. 6 years, 46-33. I think most programs would take that as a record, and as you said, more bowl games than not in his career. Most programs would take that as well. So look forward to reading more about what you have to write about Warren Powers, Lila, and I appreciate you stopping by and talking to us about Mizzou. Have a safe trip to Georgia, and we will talk to you again next week.
Thank you.
That'll do it for today and this week on SportsBeat KC. Thanks to the production staff of Beth Welsh, Monty Davis, Jeff Rosen, and Chris Pickett. Tip of the cap to Lila Bromberg, Jesse Newell, and Kellis Robinett for stopping by and talking college sports. Links to their stories can be found in the show notes and on kansascity.com. Okay, let's talk about the morning sports edition. If you're not seeing it, you're really missing out. On kansascity.com, go to the Stars e-edition. That's a replica of the printed newspaper on your screen that comes with your digital subscription. Now there's an updated sports section produced separately that goes along with it. When you open up the e-edition, there's a box in the upper right-hand corner that says All Editions. Click on that and you can access pages and pages of sports, everything that happened the previous day. You also can get it through the email. That's how I get it. It's there by about 6 a.m. every morning. Listen, however you see it, you know what I'm talking about. Complete coverage of the previous day's sports news, features, statistics, everything. It's fantastic. Hey, thanks for reading the Star and listening to our podcast lineup. You're helping support the best sports and news coverage in Kansas City, and we couldn't produce programs like SportsBeat KC without you. We'll be back on Monday breaking down the Chiefs-Packers game. Hope you'll tune in then.